I was standing in the shadows across the street from a house I'd never seen before, watching my wife through a brightly lit window as she ruffled a young boy's hair and handed him a juice box. She wasn't at the animal shelter, she wasn't wearing her volunteer vest, and that little boy wasn't a rescue dog. She looked at home. She looked happy. My hands were shaking so violently that I had to shove them into my pockets to keep from dropping my phone. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why that single moment on a quiet street in a town 45 minutes away destroyed my entire world, I need to take you back to where it all started. Elena and I were that couple. You know the ones people point to and say, "I want what they have." We'd been married for 8 years, and honestly, if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have told you we were the luckiest people on earth. We lived in a beautiful colonial in Oak Ridge, we had a dog named Buster, and we had these small, sacred routines that defined our lives. Every Saturday morning, without fail, we'd go to this little place called the Daily Grind. She'd get her oat milk latte with extra foam, I'd get a black coffee, and we'd sit in the same corner booth, just talking for hours about everything and nothing. She was my anchor, my best friend, and the person I trusted more than anyone in the world. But looking back, the first crack in the glass appeared about 6 months ago. Elena came home one Tuesday and told me she'd been invited to join the volunteer board at St. Jude's Animal Rescue. She was beaming. She's always been an animal lover, so it made perfect sense. She told me they were desperately understaffed on the weekends and needed help with the senior dog program. "It's a big commitment, Mark," she told me, her eyes wide and sincere. "I'd have to be there every Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. Is that okay? I know it cuts into our time." I told her I was proud of her. I even felt a little guilty that I wasn't doing more for the community myself. I told her we'd make it work. I even donated $1,000 to their winter drive as a surprise for her. That should have been my first morning. But what came next was so much worse. The first few months seemed normal, or at least I convinced myself they were. Elena would head out early on Saturdays, dressed in leggings and old t-shirts, her hair in a messy bun, looking exactly like someone ready to scrub kennels. When she came home, she talked about Max, the golden retriever with arthritis, or Luna, the shy cat who finally let her pet her. I listened to every word. But then, the tiny inconsistencies started to pile up. It started with a smell. One Saturday evening, as she walked past me to go upstairs and shower, I caught a whiff of her. It wasn't the smell of wet dogs or bleach or the outdoors. It was the scent of spring rain fabric softener, the really strong, sweet kind. It smelled like a fresh load of laundry from someone else's house. I asked her about it, half joking. She didn't even flinch. "Oh, one of the other volunteers, Sarah, she's obsessed with those scent beads. She probably spilled some on my vest." She laughed it off so easily that I felt stupid for even noticing.
If that was all I found, maybe I could have let it go. But then, a few weeks later, I was cleaning out the SUV. I was looking for a lost receipt when I decided to check the GPS history. I don't know why I did it. Maybe a gut feeling was already starting to simmer in the back of my mind. I saw a repeated destination in the history, a town called Fairview. It's a nice enough area, but it's 45 minutes in the opposite direction of St. Jude's. When I asked her about it that night, her reaction was perfect. She didn't get defensive, she didn't stammer, she just sighed and said, I forgot to tell you. The shelter opened a small administrative annex there for the board meetings and paperwork. It's a pain, but I have to go there once a week now." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the annex explanation felt thin. Just when you think you know the full picture, another piece of the puzzle drops and changes everything. I decided to do something I'm not proud of. I logged into our shared iPad and checked the recently deleted folder in the photo gallery. My heart stopped. There was a photo of a hand-drawn crayon card. It had a picture of a woman with long brown hair, just like Elena's, and 2 small children. At the bottom, in messy, childish handwriting, it said, "To Mommy Elena, love Leo and Maya." I felt like I'd been punched in the solar plexus. The air left my lungs in one sharp gasp. We don't have kids. We'd been trying for 3 years, gone through rounds of IVF that went nowhere, and eventually we'd decided to stop trying because the heartbreak was too much. Elena had been devastated, and here was a card from Leo and Maya calling her Mommy. I knew exactly what I was going to do next, but I had to be patient. I had to be cold. I started digging deeper, and that's when I found the hidden Instagram account. It wasn't private, which was her biggest mistake. She probably thought I'd never find it because it wasn't under her name. It was under the handle Elena V. Life. I scrolled through the posts, and it was like looking into a parallel universe. There were dozens of photos. Elena at a park, Elena at a backyard barbecue, Elena holding a little girl's hand at a zoo, and in almost every photo there was a man, a tall, rugged guy with a kind smile named David. The captions were what turned my blood to ice. Family day in Fairview. So proud of Leo's first goal. Building our future one weekend at a time. This wasn't just a physical affair. This wasn't some midlife crisis fling. This was a whole second life. She wasn't just sleeping with someone. She was playing house. She was being the mother I thought she couldn't be, with a man I'd never met, in a town I had no business visiting. And the worst part, she was using volunteering as her cover. She was using my support, my money, and my trust to fund a secret family. I spent the next 3 days acting completely normal. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I sat across from her at dinner, watched her eat the pasta I'd cooked, and listened to her talk about a difficult adoption case at the shelter. I looked at her face, the face I'd kissed every morning for 8 years, and I realized I didn't know her at all. She was a stranger, a brilliant, calculated stranger. She had no idea what was coming. I had hired a private investigator for the final confirmation, and on Friday night he sent me the address, 124 Maple Street, Fairview. Saturday morning arrived. I did the routine. I kissed her goodbye. I told her I was going to head to the driving range with some guys from work, and then maybe grab a beer. She smiled, told me to have fun, and reminded me she'd be late because of a shelter fundraiser. I watched her drive away in the SUV, the car I'd bought her for her 30th birthday, and I waited exactly 15 minutes. Then I got into my car and started the 45-minute drive to Fairview.
The neighborhood was one of those perfect suburbs. Manicured lawns, basketball hoops in the driveways, the smell of charcoal grills. I parked a block away and walked. I felt like I was floating outside of my own body. When I reached 124 Maple Street, I saw her car in the driveway. And then I saw her through the window. That was the moment. The juice box, the laughter, the mommy card come to life. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I walked up the driveway, my boots crunching on the gravel. I could hear music playing from inside, something upbeat and happy. I reached the front door, and I didn't knock. I just turned the handle. It was unlocked. Of course it was. It was a safe neighborhood. I walked into the entryway. The smell of spring rain fabric softener hit me like a physical blow. I walked toward the kitchen. Elena was standing at the counter, her back to me, pouring a glass of wine. David was sitting at the kitchen table, reading a newspaper, while the 2 kids played with Legos on the floor. "It's a nice house, Elena," I said. My voice was eerily calm, reflecting none of the absolute carnage happening inside my chest. The silence that followed was deafening. Elena didn't just turn around. She froze. Her whole body went rigid. When she finally turned, the glass of wine in her hand tilted. Red wine splashed across her white sundress, a dress I'd bought her for her last anniversary, and then the glass hit the tile floor. It shattered into 1,000 pieces. The sound was like a gunshot in that quiet kitchen. Her face went from a healthy, sun-kissed tan to the color of a tombstone in 3 seconds. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Her eyes were darting everywhere, to the kids, to David, then back to me. She looked like a trapped animal. "Mark," she finally whispered. Her voice was thin, shaking, barely audible. What are you doing here?" David stood up then. He looked confused, not guilty. "Elena, who is this?" He looked at me, then back to her. "Is this the unstable ex you told me about?" I almost laughed. Unstable ex. Is that what I am now? I stepped further into the room. I looked David straight in the eye. "I'm not her ex, David. I'm her husband. We've been married for 8 years. We live 45 minutes away in Oak Ridge. And as far as I knew, she was at an animal shelter today." The color drained from David's face too. He looked at Elena, and the realization began to dawn on him. He wasn't a co-conspirator. He was another victim. "Elena?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "What is he talking about? You told me you were divorced. You showed me the papers." I pulled a folder out of my jacket. "Oh, she's good with paperwork," I said, tossing it onto the kitchen table next to his newspaper. "But these are the real papers. These are the ones I had my lawyer drop yesterday. They're for a divorce, all right, but we haven't signed them yet." The kids started crying. They were confused and scared by the tension in the room. Elena finally found her voice, but it was a frantic, high-pitched babble. "Mark, please, it's not what it looks like. I was going to tell you, I needed this. I needed to feel like a mother. David was a widower, he needed help, and it happened." "It happened," I repeated. "For 6 months, Elena, every weekend. You built a whole life here. You let these kids call you mommy. You looked me in the eye every single morning and lied to me. You let me donate money to a shelter that you weren't even at. You didn't just have an affair. You erased me. She tried to grab my arm, her hands trembling, her face wet with tears. Mark, I love you, I do. It was like a fantasy. I didn't want to lose you.
You didn't want to lose your provider, I corrected her. I looked around the kitchen. I'm done, Elena. David, I'm sorry you got caught in this, but you should probably know her name isn't even Elena Vance like she probably told you. It's Elena Miller, and she's exactly who you see standing there. I didn't wait for her to respond. I didn't stay for the screaming match that I knew was coming between her and David. I walked out of that blue colonial house, walked past the SUV I'd paid for, and got into my car. My heart was still pounding, but the shaking had stopped. A strange, cold clarity had taken over. The aftermath was a blur of legal meetings and packing boxes. I didn't give her a second chance. There are some things you can come back from, but a secret life isn't one of them. She lost everything that day. David kicked her out before the sun went down, realizing that the woman he thought was his saving grace was a ghost built on lies. She tried to come home, but I'd already changed the locks and put her things in a storage unit. It's been a year now. The divorce was finalized months ago. People ask me if I'm bitter or if I'll ever be able to trust again. Honestly, I don't know about the trust part yet, but I'm not bitter. I'm just relieved. I'd rather be alone in a quiet house than live one more second with a woman I didn't know. She thought she was clever, building a secret world where she could have everything. But in the end, she played herself. She burned down the only real thing she ever had for a fantasy that turned to ash the moment the light hit it. I'm finally breathing again, and for the first time in a long time, the air is clear.